powers combined, I am
the realist Theo with a coach interview. Hello everyone, Theo here, and we are back today with another coach interview. Today we are actually joined by Dan, aka StoutGaming, coach of the Alexandria Arcanines. Thanks, Dan, for joining us on this call.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we'll just hop right into it. Your first season with the VBA, you're doing pretty well, decently well. And so you're currently 7-0 with a plus 13 differential, I believe, which means you've only dropped one game in your current schedule. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, how have you been enjoying the season so far? What do you think?
Honestly, it's been a blast. Everyone in the league seems like a super solid person along with being a good player, and I think that's got to be at least half of what makes a league good.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we have a pretty good crew among us this season, and you definitely come in and made some waves, made some statements throughout the season for sure with your team. Are you satisfied with how you drafted? And what do you think of your team overall?
So I was very happy with my team coming out of the draft. Honestly, it was about as good as I could have hoped. I didn't really map out what I wanted, but I had a vague sense of different things that I thought would be good value that I thought I might be able to get. But Glastria falling to the wheel pick, that was not on my list of things that could happen because it's just so good. So it being there and Venusaur being there just gave me two really solid pieces to start with.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you grabbed Glacier pretty late in the draft too. You're able to grab it pretty late. Hey, I'm looking at your schedule. You've two, like I mentioned earlier, you have one game loss, and that was against the Fuchsia City Royals from week 6. Are you worried, or I guess out of the 3 teams that you have left, you recently took a win over the Gardner Guzzlords, and Mantine made a showing there did decently well.
Mantine was very successful in that match. I was worried about some Max Incineroar sets, so I knew I needed either Mantine or Goodra to fight that. And Mantine is the direction that I went with that. And yeah, it hit like a truck, and I was very happy with that. Yeah,
you played it really well. So you have 3 teams left in the regular season. You've already clinched a spot in playoffs. You're up against the Lost Teddy Ursas, the Greedy Greninjas, and the Island Dragons. Are any of those teams worrying to you?
So in my preseason power rankings, the Greedy Greninjas were pretty well up there. I think their team is it's a very solid build, and I think Sasori's been playing really well this season as well. So that's a team that I'm potentially worried about, especially since at this point in the season, I'm not going to be bringing... I'm bringing whatever I think is the second best team that I can bring every week, basically, especially against people that are going to be in the playoffs, because I don't want to reveal too much playoff.
Right.
Like, for Bubbles' team, I was potentially weak with the team I brought against a Max Incineroar with, I think, Thunder Punch. I think Incineroar gets access to, so that would have been something that could have been an issue for me. But I also had a team ready where that's not an issue. But this current week it would have been with the team that I brought. So that's sort of where I'm looking at it.
Gotcha. Any of the teams this season have their records surprised you at all, just from their team makeup?
I think off the top of my head, one of the more surprising ones, especially at the beginning of the season, was the Sandston Scissors, because their team I thought lacked a lot of offensive punch. Like, he had a lot of great support options, but he have to run almost mono support a lot of the time, which he ended up running mono support for a decent chunk of the season. But he's been able to take a lot of games with that, and even though he's lost a few recently to fall down to 500, like early season, I thought he was one of the more impressive players, definitely, with what he was getting out of his team, which I still think comp-wise is in the bottom half of the league in terms of potential damage output, but I think that he's the player that is maximizing the potential of his team the most right now.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, he did have a lot of support options. He still, what am I saying? He still has a lot of support options on his team. But Wolf, who's coach of the Sandstone Scissors, he has been playing. He played really well at the beginning of the season. His record is kind of evened out now. At currently during this interview, it's 3-3 with a 0 differential. But we'll see how he does in this upcoming match. But he definitely has a strong chance at that playoff spot, though. I mean, there's still 3 to 4 games left, so I could definitely see him making playoffs. Currently at 7-0, so you definitely have a spot in there. And it's now just a matter of how well you seed, whether you're 1 or 2, depending on the rest of the schedule. Is there anyone on the lower half that you're scared to potentially make that 8th spot to face first round?
Let's see. Of the bottom half to potentially make the first round in the 8th slot,
currently it's the Great Lakes Grimmsnarl at number 8, but those last 9 through 12, maybe 9 through 13 spots still have a chance.
Are all pretty close.
Yeah.
Rolo's team, I actually think the Clinton Clefables, although I did 2-0 him in a matchup earlier this season, he did have one of the harder teams for me to prep for because I said this at the beginning of the season and I'll say it now. Clefable is 100% a tier 1 Pokemon. It's probably the best redirector in draft, and having that as a tier 2 option, it just gives him so much flexibility to have powerful things in the tier 1 slot. And although I was low on his team before the season started, every transaction that he's made has been a positive for his team. So it's one of the scarier teams just because of how strong Clefable is.
So a beautiful thing about our league, about the VBA, is that we have a lot of people recording and posting their matches on YouTube. Who's been your favorite content creator so far? Whose matches have you enjoyed the most watching?
Ooh, that's a close one. Raz is definitely up there because his editing skills as the weeks have gone on have been phenomenal. And
really has.
He's been a lot of fun to watch, so I very much look forward to his videos when they come out every week. Ryan with the Melton Nuts, I try to catch his streams. They're generally very entertaining, and I really like the music that he uses with his battles. So those are the 2 that pop out at the front of my mind. And then the Dice Roll Drillbers, I also enjoy watching their battles a lot, and the Pittsburgh Steel types. So I think those 4 are the ones that I most look forward to each week, but everyone who puts the work into their videos, like, I enjoy them all, but those are the ones that come to the front of my mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Fifth Leaf's power rankings, where he was trying to decide if he could fight the mascots. Like, that's got to be up there too.
That was a great video. So you mentioned Sam, the Dice Roll Drillbers. Sam actually went undefeated in the regular season as well. You're currently matched up with him, and I think you guys might even end up with the same differential potentially. Unfortunately, you guys don't play this regular season, and that was a matchup. That would be a matchup I would really look forward to. I mean, there is a chance that you guys will play in playoffs. There's a strong chance that he'll make playoffs with his crazy dice roll current team. Is that a matchup that you're worried about?
That is a matchup that I'm looking forward to. I'm obviously worried about every matchup. Like, I'm going to take every opponent as seriously as possible, look at all the different options for their team, including his. And he does have one of the scarier teams, I think. But if I got to play him, like, before the season, it was one of the teams where I'm like, this is the type of team that's going to be really fun to build against. Yeah. So I do hope I get the opportunity to play him in the playoffs. Like, there are a couple teams that I wish I was playing in the regular season that I hope I could play in the playoffs, and I can't possibly play all of them. But both his team and the Pittsburgh Steel types are teams that I'm not facing in the regular season. Actually, his team, the Pittsburgh Steel types, the Sandstone Scissors, and the Great Lakes Grimmsnarls are all 4 teams that I'd like to play in the playoffs, but there's only 3 playoff rounds. So
yeah, one of them will have to miss out.
Yeah.
So for those that don't know, Dan, StoutGaming is actually part of another. Well, actually, you do a few drafts, but the one that we hear the most about that you're included in is the MDL, right? So yeah, give us let us know what is the MDL? How is it different from the VBA?
So the MDL doesn't use Draft League, the website. Instead, it's completely run through an Excel sheet with formulas and everything. So you just enter a few things and it populates the entire sheet, including the tier lists. It's a very fun, very, I want to say very, very competitive league. Like we've got some world qualifiers in the league, like that kind of thing. So I'm not sure what the best way to phrase this is, but it's a lot of fun, and I feel like I learned a lot my first season playing there, which was their second season. Now I'm in their third season, and being involved in that league made me a better drafter because it helped me to realize like why things work in draft league, ways to build. Like it was sort of a baptism by fire my first season there. Like I still did well my first season there, but I'm currently in my fourth season of draft leagues, and my first season in the MDL is the only time I've lost a match. So I'll call it a baptism by fire there, and I feel like I am a much better player now, having gone through with all of those high-level players, like seeing why they rate teams the way they do, how they build for certain matchups. Like Hypervoice Hydreigon won the finals against someone who was trying to set up a substitute with Prankster Thunderous. So, like, that's the kind of thing that neither of those would have been on my radar if I was building in that matchup.
How's the structure work? How many players are there?
So this season there are 14. Last season there were 12. So it is a smaller league, but they divide it into divisions instead of sort of a smorgasbord of all 16. So you have to make the playoffs out of your division. So you play everyone in your division, and then you have a couple interdivision matchups at the end of the season. But if you make it out of your division, that's how you qualify for playoffs, and then you play in your division up until the finals.
Okay, cool. I mean, I think there's some MDL folks in the VBA
yes.
Group, and they definitely cheer you on for sure. Shout outs to EM Burst.
Burst and Toxic are
oh yeah, Toxic as well. Yep.
Yeah, they're super solid guys. I know they can get a little aggressive sometimes in chat, but it's all good-natured fun.
Right, yeah. All right. Another Pokemon you've used pretty well in the VBA is Goodra. I remember one match where Goodra it was against Senpai. That's what it was.
Yes.
It was against Senpai. Yeah, can you talk a little bit about your Goodra pick and how it fits into your team?
Yeah, so Goodra doesn't die. Like, it hasn't died this season. It's very bulky, very solid. Its offenses are a little bit lackluster, but it works as a defensive pivot. I've got some pretty frail offensive mons, specifically the Tapu Koko, that don't like to eat certain attacks, and the Goodra just soaks them up, especially if I've got the Electric Seed on it. So it's just very bulky. It can do damage when it's maxed, and honestly, I needed a Dragon type, and I was looking for a bulky pivot as opposed to another pretty frail offensive one, and Goodra just checked all the boxes. And I really hadn't used Electric Seed on Goodra before, but doing that to give it +1 defense, like, it didn't take damage from anything. So yeah, that's something that I will bring out again at some point, I'm sure. But Goodra, if Mantine's the secret MVP, Goodra's definitely a glue piece for the team. Even though it doesn't come all the time, like, I know my opponents need to prep to beat +1 defense Goodra, and I've just got to figure out what on their team can actually hit hard into that, and I know that that's coming.
Right, yeah. It does fit into your team pretty well. And yeah, that defensive dragon typing is really nice to have, just to be able to safely switch in and switch out. Then obviously you have Glacier on your team. Glacier has done pretty well. I think it's number 2 on the kill leaderboard, next to just behind the GMAX Cinderace, to my knowledge. Can you speak a little bit on the Glacier? What are your thoughts? I know you think it's definitely the best Pokemon in draft, in your opinion, right?
Oh, it's 100% the best Pokemon in draft in a format where GMAX is not separate from everything else. When GMAX is separate from the base form of Pokemon, then and your Gmax pick is untiered, then it could be not quite as good a value as a great tier 1 Gmax option, just because that would give you an extra tier 1. But in the tier 1s, like Glastrier is far and away the best. Because like you said, it's second in the league in kills, and I'm not specifically trying to get kills with it. I know that Sam is trying to chain feed things to Cinderace because he wants the trophy, and I just bring Glastrier occasionally, and it kills 2.5 things a match. But it's so hard to build around because it's got an immense amount of bulk, and along with the immense amount of bulk, it's got a very, very slow speed, so it operates really well in Trick Room. It, like, single-handedly is a Trick Room mode by itself, as long as someone's going to set it, either you or your opponent. My opponents can't bring Trick Room against me most of the time, because if they bring Trick Room against me, well, yeah, they might get, I don't know, a Snorlax or something in Trick Room, but I've got a Glastrier in Trick Room, and that's just better. And it's so warping to build around. Like, you can build in a way that you can beat Glastrier, but if you build in a way that you can beat Glastrier, you just hard lose to Tapu Koko. Like, it's got that sort of warping effect where
right.
The bulky water type is the best way to beat Glastrier, but even though that's the best way to beat Glastrier, I've got Gmax, Venusaur, and Tapu Koko on my team. So if I know you're going to bring bulky water types because you want to beat Glastrier, you have a bad day with those two. So I'm still a proponent that if there's a ban list, Glastrier should be the thing that's considered on the ban list, because it is definitely the best tier 1 in draft, and it is the hardest thing to build against while still considering the rest of your opponent's team.
Yeah, so what I get from that is the lesson learned here is that Raz needs to draft Glastrier next season.
100%. Raz drafts like Glastrier, and then he doesn't even need Bronzong. I just got lucky and got Bronzong as my center. But if he drafts like Glastrier Musharna or Glastrier Aromatisse or something, Musharna would actually be really good with it, the more I think about it. He has a Trick Room mode, and he doesn't have to get Razmat at someone else's Trick Room mode.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. All right. Yeah. I mean, it definitely is a single-handed answer to Trick Room mode. You just bring it, and all of a sudden you have an option in Trick Room. Off the bat.
It's not even just an answer for Trick Room mode. Like, I've played a couple games this season where I lead a really fast mode, and then I've just got Bronzong, Glastrier in the back, because a lot of my fast modes don't use Tailwind. They're just fast in and of themselves. So I beat my opponent with fast things, and then my opponent tries to counter with fast things in the back that come out, and then Trick Room comes up, Glastrier comes out, and as I've posted a couple times, the Ice Horse goes burr. It just kills everything that's left on the field, and even without Dynamaxing, the natural it's naturally more bulky than Arceus. Like, it's so hard to kill.
There been any Pokemon that you drafted that has surprised you so far?
So I will give a shout out to Ryan, my front office. Towards the end of the draft, I knew I needed a water type, and Swampert had been sniped from me. So I was looking through the potential water types in the tier, and he said I should try Mantine, even though neither of us had used Mantine before, and honestly, that thing has overperformed every time it's hit the field. I think it's taken 50 to 60% of the opposing team's total health among all their Pokemon every time it's been on the field. So Mantine has definitely been one of my biggest overperformers. Yeah,
it's deceptively stronger than its base stats tell you, just because once it sets that rain up, it actually does chunk pretty well. And then you got that speed control as well. So you have two different weather modes, technically, with Mantine and the Torkoal. So I could see your opponent definitely having trouble prepping for both modes, potentially. And it does fit your team really well, that Mantine, and you've been running it very well. How about the Beheeyem? That's a tier 4 pick, and also the Frostmoth. Frostmoth hasn't hit the field yet, but do you expect it to hit the field this season at all?
I would very much hope that it hits the field, because I do think it is, objectively speaking, the strongest thing in tier 4. it doesn't really take special damage like at all. I was doing some basic calcs, and I know that a Max Frostmoth survives a Max Flare from a Modest Togekiss with like half of its health left, and that's quad effective. So just stuff like that, I think Frostmoth can hit the field. But I also know that it's a second ice type on my team, and Blastriere is sort of an auto bring every week. So it does give my team a lot of weaknesses. So I feel like my team is the team that could utilize Frostmoth the least, even though it is the strongest thing in Tier 4. But as for the Beheeyem, it has hit the field. I've very much enjoyed using Beheeyem, especially the sort of Meteor Beam sets. I have a couple other sets up my sleeve for it that I could potentially bust out in the playoffs, but
cool.
I'm going to keep those a little close to the vest.
Yeah. Keep that in your pocket. Keep that in your pocket for now. Also, speaking of pockets, check out how spiffy... Oh, he's this way. Check out how spiffy Dan looks today in his work clothes, our fellow politician. Yeah, Dan, out of curiosity, I mean, how did you get into Pokemon? You're doing really well. How long you been playing? How did you get into it? When did you get into competitive Pokemon?
So those are very different questions. I got into Pokemon when Gen 3 came out. Pokemon Ruby was the first game I ever played. I was pretty young at the time, so my mom bought it for me off of a recommendation from one of her, I'll say adult friends at the time, who said that it would be a fun game for kids, so she ended up getting it for me on my Game Boy Advance, and I ended up beating it, and my first Elite Four team that I ended up beating with included a level 88 Sceptile, because I didn't know I could save in between the Elite Four battles, and I didn't know what super effective and not very effective meant, so I just brute forced the entire game with Leaf Blade.
Nice.
So eventually level 88 Sceptile is what it took to be able to do that. So that's how I got into Pokemon.
Did you your way into Net Battle then? If you started with Ruby and Sapphire, is that how you got into competitive?
No, I'd always been aware of competitive, and like throughout high school and college, I'd always every once in a while have like a 1 week binge where I watch a bunch of Aaron Zhang videos or something.
Yeah.
But I'd never played competitive or really thought about building for competitive until Sword and Shield came out.
Nice.
So I'm very, very new to competitive Pokemon, but when I get involved with something, I sort of dive in like head first. Like in college, for me, it was Magic the Gathering, and I qualified for every RPTQ while in college. I played in a couple Grand Prix. I qualified for nationals a few years. So like I got super involved with Magic in college, and now that it's Pokemon, I'm understanding the sets, breaking down the meta. The second month that I ended up actually playing on the ladder, I made it to top 10. So that kind of stuff. Like I get super into and super competitive with basically anything I do. So right now that's Pokemon.
Yeah, I relate with that. A little thing about me is that the only two games I really play, the two game series I play, are Pokemon and Super Smash Brothers. And the reasoning why I also got really into it is because I didn't really have video games growing up, and then those were the first two I really got. So I ended up diving into it pretty hard. Same thing. My first game was Crystal version, and I got into it really late too. I was pretty old at that time, and I remember same thing with your Sceptile. I just bombed through the whole entire game with a Typhlosion, just pressing the same move over and over again to beat everything. And then I found out about competitive Pokemon and net battle or net play, whatever it was called back in the day. Got into that, and then same thing with Smash. You think you're the best, and then all of a sudden you find about competitive and you bounce into it, and I got really deep into Smash, started with Melee and whatnot. But yeah, I totally understand that. So you're into, or you were into Magic the Gathering. Do you still compete in that at all?
The pandemic, it was really hard, and also I got married pretty quickly out of college, so it's hard to justify to my wife, I'm going to go to a tournament every weekend it's an hour and a half away that I have to drive to, and then I'm going to go play cards. It costs me $25 to enter, And even if I'm going to be making money on average at these tournaments, she doesn't see in-store credit as as comparable value to me being home and us watching a movie together. So that makes it a bit more difficult. So not as much Magic recently.
That makes sense. How long have you been married?
So I got married in August of 2019. So
that's pretty
almost
recent.
2 years now.
So like right before you got it in before the pandemic, which is good. Didn't have to delay it or anything. That's great.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we've been married in lockdown longer than we were married before lockdown.
Have you two known each other for a while?
Yes, actually, we began dating junior year of high school, and all throughout college except for one day, and then we got married pretty shortly after college. I graduated from Furman University in 2018, so we got married a year after college.
Okay, cool. Where's Furman?
Furman is in Greenville, South Carolina. Yeah, so it's a nice little private school in the South, which is it sounds more pretentious than it is, but it's a really nice school, awesome campus. Like, legitimately, I don't say this just because I went there, but probably the most beautiful campus of any school in America, at least that I've seen.
You heard it here, folks. You heard it here. Are you from the South?
Interesting question. I'm going to say yes, because I did graduate high school in the South, but when I was younger, my dad's job moved frequently, so I lived in Pennsylvania, Maine, Arizona, North and South Carolina. I feel like I'm missing at least one in there. New Hampshire.
Okay.
So college was the first school or school system that I was in for 4 consecutive years. Wow. So, yeah.
That's wild. So you've been kind of all around the East Coast here, besides the southern East Coast. That's pretty cool. Were you, was it tough kind of bouncing around everywhere like that?
A little bit, but I also feel like it's helped me with my career path, which is politics, because I was very good at ingratiating myself into new environments.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Something that's pretty useful in my current profession.
Absolutely. Speaking of your current profession, what do you do exactly? Are you allowed to say?
So, yeah, I can say. So right now I am a policy researcher for a bipartisan lobbying firm in Washington, D.C. I focus on transportation and infrastructure policy, which, because everything is transportation and infrastructure according to the most recent pieces of legislation, means I focus on a lot of things. But generally, my job is to go through legislation, find out what's in it, because it's 600 or 700 pages of a lot of stuff, find out what's in it that's relevant to our clients, and present the information to them as quickly and efficiently as possible.
Cool. Awesome. Well, let's loop back into Pokemon. So now we've got a little background about Dan and his personal life. You mentioned in the coach introduction survey that I sent out that you're actually working on a Pokemon RPG. Is that still in the works?
It is. It is a very slow work in progress, because I'm not a computer coder by any stretch of the imagination. So anything that involves coding or setting up, I'm going to call it events with different triggers, like it's pretty slow for me, but it's just sort of like an enjoyment project when I have the time to do it, not something I'm devoting a lot of time to.
Gotcha. I'm excited for when you do complete it, though. Maybe we'll get some people from our group, the VBA group, to Nuzlocke it or something like that, and they can stream it. Yeah.
Well, it's going to be very difficult. Like, the point is that I'm trying to make it as difficult as possible, and every trainer battle is a double battle.
That's awesome. That's a really cool format. I don't think anyone's done that yet, to my knowledge. But yeah, making it tough is going to be a lot of fun. Typically, how we end these interviews is I like to just find. So I listen to this podcast. It's called the Brain Candy Podcast. So shout outs to them. What they do when they interview people is that they ask them a question at the end of their interview, and that is, what is in the trunk of your car currently? Because they think it tells a lot about what point in life this person is at. So let me ask you, Dan, what is in the trunk of your car?
The body of the last man who thought he could best me. No, it's mostly a mess. I've used it as a bit of additional storage during the coronavirus pandemic, so it's still transitioning from that stage.
Well, that makes sense. That does make a lot of sense. The body also makes a lot of sense. I could see that as well.
I get very competitive.
Yeah. Also, we're not going to end it there. We're not going to end the interview there. That's typically how I want to end the interview. But there's a strong chance you're going to go undefeated this season. At least in the regular season. We'll see what happens in playoffs. And then there's a strong chance you probably are the favorite to win out this season. That's what it looks like from your standing right now, currently. So I won last season, and we got to give the people what they want, Dan. We got to give the people what they want. So me, you, we're going to play right now. We're going to play right now, all right? For the people, all right?
Yeah,
here we go.
I'm ready to go.
So we'll go best 2 out of 3.
Are we playing Showdown? Are we playing chess? Let me know. I'm good to go.
All right. Here we go. Here we go. Ah, gotcha. I gotcha on that. Oh, here we are.
Nice.
All right, so that's 1. That's 1.
Okay.
1-0. All right, yep. Oh, this is a tough one. Oh, you got it. You got it.
Yes, I'm not going into the deep strategy of rock, paper, scissors online.
It's a little less complex than chess, right?
I've not studied this. Yeah.
Oh! All right, all right. Am I gonna do it? Oh, the comeback.
Okay.
Here it goes. All right, last round. Last round. You ready?
Yep. Let's go.
All right. Ooh. Ooh. This is not looking good, boys. This is not looking good.
Yeah, now you're seeing why I don't live commentate my matches and I add the commentary afterwards, because I'm laser focused in on rock, paper, scissors, because, I don't know, that's just who I am as a person.
I usually play this while I'm battling. That's what I do.
Okay. Oop, there you go.
This is it. This could be it.
Ooh, nice play.
Oh, all right. So this is it. This is it. All right.
I gotta get loose.
Oh, I see. I see.
I don't. I see nothing. Good game.
Yeah. GG's. GG's. That was really close.
Yes. I'll have
Cool.
to study the deep rock,
Yeah,
paper,
yeah.
scissors chats.
And start analyzing. Start analyzing. All right. Cool. So.
Yes.
That's our interview. Is there anything that you want to say to the viewers, all the 2 of them, all the 3 of them?
One thing, Thievul is a bad Pokemon, but it works on my team, so don't sleep on it. That's specifically for everyone who, in literally everyone in the preseason looking at my team, they're like, and then there's Thievul, which is a bad Pokemon. Yes, I agree it's bad, but it works really well with what I do.
Yeah, Thievul's really good. I mean, Moxie Boosted kind of showed off the Thievul tech earlier in the meta, and he destroyed people with it with Indeedee Mail and whatnot. Indeedee Mail, and then eventually to Tapu Lele. But yeah, you've been working with Thievul, and you heard it here, folks. Dan is going to bring Thievul, and he's going to be Dynamaxing Thievul for the rest of the season. You heard it here.
You know what? I will Dynamax Thievul at least once this season.
All right, well, you heard that here.
I will say it here. Yeah. If you're going to say something ridiculous, let me say something more ridiculous. I'll actually do it.
All right. Well, you've said it. It's on record now. All right, Dan, thank you for joining me for this interview, and have a good day at work.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.